listening to Mr. Allard's Neighborhood. Small town feel with big time ideas. After all, you are entitled to Brad's opinion. Here's your host, Brad Allard.
Well, here we are again. Another week. How you doing, Josh?
Doing great. How are you?
Oh, I don't know. Are you worn out from watching that NFL draft 24/7?
I can't say that it took a lot of my time, but
That's what I figured. Anyway, I had a hard drive getting over here. It's like the train and then the old ladies, and it's like when you're, you get behind the old lady. It's like, I am not going to go fast. It just irritates you. Anyway, I have Sara, Nicole, Tynan here, and Erica Virus, and they're with Reach Across Johnson County. Say it right, dummy. Reach Across Johnson County. They have a big event coming up Thursday night over at the East Cleburne Community Center. Mm-hmm. Bloom where you are planted, and it's going to be talking about mental health. I believe May is Mental Health Month, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. It's always Mental Health Month, really, because it's a 24/7 thing. But we're going to talk about, the benefits of not just this event, but also the benefits of taking care of your mental health. I mean, it's become more of a thing in my generation than it used to be. It used to be our generation's just suck it up, buttercup, and move on. But now we've kind of gotten a pretty good idea how counterproductive that could be. Mm-hmm. So we're going to talk all about that. This is your third time on the show, isn't it, Sara?
Yeah, I love it.
I know. You just seem to be just talk about something you really love to do. And are you still doing yoga and stuff like that?
No, I took a step back because I started getting some speaking gigs, started pursuing ministerial studies. I started working for a church.
Which church?
Lifegate, Burleson.
Okay.
So it's been really fun. It's taken up a lot of time, and yoga just kind of fell to the side. Mm-hmm. I still think it's great. I just don't really have as much time to pursue it.
Well, that's good. And you also have a child. And how old is?
I've got a 7-year-old little girl named Stella.
Right.
And a 3-year-old little boy named Sage, who keeps me very busy because he has medical stuff.
Related to what we're talking about? Or
No. He's just had some allergies and asthma and eczema, and he has esophagus disorder. And so he's in and out of the hospital, which keeps me on my toes.
Well, it keeps your prayer life active, no doubt.
It does, for sure. Yeah.
And Eric, this is like what, your 5th or 6th seminar that at least I know of. How many of these have you done?
I believe this will be our 6th.
Yeah, I mean, so it's this is something that's become almost a routine thing, right? I mean, it's an expectation. It's on the calendar now.
Yeah, it's a little easier to do now.
Yeah, well, the first couple, I'm sure, you stayed up late not worrying about it and all this other stuff.
Oh, for sure.
When I've talked to y'all or people in other organizations, and they say all the stress that goes into these events. I mean, we just had 2 big ones this past weekend with the Next Step and Harvest House, and I bet right now they're relieved.
Yeah.
Because, they got past it. But we got some more stuff coming on, and I'll talk about that at the end of the show. But let's talk about our sponsors now, because they make all this possible. And I do know, I was talking to Otto about this, not recently, but like a couple of months ago, and he was really pleased that he was able to sponsor these kind of things. Because he believes in this very much. And so I think it was probably the last time you were on the show, Erica, that we were talking about this. And he was like, well, that's the kind of stuff I like to see publicized and whatnot. But it's Our Place, of course, Our Place Restaurant. Everybody's been there. Mm-hmm. And then Gina's Pizza as well. Everybody goes there too. It seems like I go there. I like to do business there because it's quieter. Our Place is usually not loud, but it's busy, right? Our Place, Gina's is a little smaller. And so, but it's usually pretty busy, but being smaller, it's not quite as hectic, I guess, if you will. I don't know if Otto wants to have Our Place described as hectic, but you go there in breakfast time, it's a full house, right? Which is good.
Good for business.
Yeah, and he's also opening at the other one down the street, right? I'm sure you saw that when you drove over here, unless you came the other direction.
Another Our Place?
Yes, Our Place too, right about 2 blocks from here.
I had no idea. That's awesome.
Yeah, he's going to open up sometime, maybe this week. I know he's doing a soft opening to kind of give his crew a run through, and then probably I bet this time next week he'll be up and running for the public.
Nice.
Yeah, so there you are. But then he'll be busy as always there too. Also, thank you to our friends over at Old Pro Roofing. John Williams, 817-734-2756. So come by and check your roof out. If you're concerned about the weather, it's always possible this time of year, right? It's always something that can happen. So have them check your roof out before it rains so you don't have to worry about it, because they'll tell you that your roof is good to go, or you might need some minor repairs, whatever. So Call John 817-734-2756. Also, thank you to Jeff Kelly. We're going to have him on in June. We were going to have him on a little earlier, but he's going on vacation, doggone him. So we're going to have him on in June. And he's going to talk all about real estate, what's going on with the rates and whatever else. And, everything's kind of in flux right now and whatnot. And one thing you don't have to worry about is homes are not subject to tariffs. There you go. 817-781-0546 or Jeff at jeffkellyrealty.com. He's with the Wethington Agency here in town. So you can drop by and see him. It's right off of Renfro. Also, thank you to Hotworks. Now, you said you just joined this, right?
I joined in January, and it's probably one of the best decisions I've ever made for my physical health and mental health.
They go hand in hand, don't they?
Yeah.
Because Michelle's been on here, and she'll talk about the emotional and mental health aspects of it as much as physical. Which one do you use?
The Hotworks?
Yes.
I go to all the classes. I alternate. One of their philosophies is, I forget the word that they use, but it's like cycling through different, it's like doing 2 different types of exercises at one time, but like just alternating. So like I go from cycle and then I'll take a stretch class or I'll do the rowing. But getting in the sauna is good for mental health for the long run because they've proven that infrared sauna can help reduce your chances of brain disorders like dementia and Alzheimer's. And so that's why I like sauna.
Well, as Erica knows, my father's going through that. And I just saw him Saturday. And that's another story. He's 87. And so I don't know if sauna would help him now, but
it's more of a preventative.
Right,
like the more you do it when you're younger, it's kind of like, can you prevent that? Well, it doesn't hurt.
And it's not too expensive, is it?
No. Oh my gosh. I was so grateful. And it's like all the different exercises. So, I'm getting the benefits of like a yoga class and then a cycle class, whereas I'd have to pay like individually to experience that. I get all of it.
When do you use it? At night or during the day?
I like the mornings. I like get it done. I go 3 days a week, first thing in the morning. They even have a weight room.
Yeah.
So I'll go do weights in the functional zone, and then I'll go over and do like a gentle stretch class and maybe hit the cycle class, but it's great. You're getting the sauna. So
I guess you pretty much said it all. So let's go on to the next one. Tiffany Jane over at the Local Life, the magazine will be coming out this week. I believe Thursday is May 1st, and it almost always is mailed right on the 1st or the day before. So you'll be getting that to 30,000 homes, and various other retail outlets have extra copies. I know Otto keeps some extra copies at the counter. So if you have to wait a minute or wait for your party to show up or whatever, you can look through it or take it to the table with you and look through it. I've seen people do that too. So Local Life magazine, always a great advertising tool. And thank you to our friend Cody O'Brien, Burleson Buzz. He'll be back on the beat pretty soon. He's a new father, and so, or for a second time around. And so he'll be back on the beat for the city council meetings and other things very soon. But he's what I use for my news information quite often for the radio show. And it's good local information, and it really kind of helps take the place of our late lamented Burleson Stars. So there you are. It's $50 a year, so it's pretty cheap. And this is right up your alley. This is Medicare Counseling and Therapy with Jerry Kavanaugh. I did not know this until I met Jerry a few months ago, that Medicare now covers mental health care.
Wow.
And, that's a really great thing. And because, when you're on Medicare quite a bit, you probably have suffered loss. All right. Because we're all at that age, or you're going through other types of emotional strains and stresses. And it's great that Medicare now finally covers these things.
Yeah.
Because, particularly in grief counseling, that's what Jerry does a lot of that. Now, his number is 817-992-8034 or at GF Kavanaugh at swbell.net. Have you ever heard of swbell.net?
No.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it's an old one. And now we would kind of get you a Gmail account, Jerry, and he may.
Gmail.
He's here in town. He's on the 3rd floor of that building with Rio Mambo and the Rim and all that. I don't know if that
Drip
building.
Bar's over there.
Drip Bar, yeah. That's another therapeutic outfit, isn't it? It's all kind of working together, isn't it? Well, see, it really wasn't until my era that they started putting those together.
Wellness.
Wellness is not just, going to the doctor and getting medicine, but there's
preventative.
Well, and it's the entire package. It's emotional, mental, and physical, not just
holistic.
Yeah, that's the word I'm needing. That's a good word. I'm going to use that one again. Holistic, but it's it's not something that my generation really focused on. And it really was beginning in the 70s when I was in high school, in the 80s, is that they started using as a kind of a catch-all pharmaceuticals. Okay, and I'm not opposed to that. I'm not saying that it's wrong or right, but I think it was kind of a shortcut. And they would use, Prozac. They called us the Prozac Nation back in the 80s, and that became probably the widest prescribed pill other than birth control in my generation. And that's not always it's not always the best path. I mean, it's a path, but there are other paths, and that's what you're here for, right?
My big issue is side effects. I was medicated for most of my life, and I have nothing against people taking medication for what they need, but for me, I have a lot of blank spots. I have a lot of things in my life that I just don't remember because I was so medicated. There were seasons of my life where I was just like a zombie going through the motions, completely numb.
Well, and there's not just those side effects, but also the physical ones.
Oh, for sure.
I've talked to several other people, and they've had to change their medications a little bit because of either weight gain or it caused heart issues or whatever else. And again, you'd be surprised at the number of people you encounter that have some sort of regimen like that.
Yeah.
It's not anywhere stigmatized as it was before. Back in my day, taking pills to help you out was seen as a crutch, I guess is the best way to put it. And that's not really what the case is here. But it was still seen as a way of skipping the other parts.
Yeah, for sure, which is what I like to talk about with holistic. But I will say the first medication I was ever put on, I was 11, freshly diagnosed with bipolar. They tried out, I don't even remember what the medication was, but I had an allergic reaction to the sun.
Ooh, that ain't good.
And my family took me on a cruise right after my diagnosis.
No, that's a good idea.
Skin blew up, red, splotchy. So, yeah.
Well, at this seminar, your seminars, Erica, do y'all talk about this aspect of mental health? Or are you talking more about how you could try to cope and deal and whatnot without resorting to that?
We don't so much talk about different medications because, of course, we're not medically trained as a prescriber to be able to give all the different ins and outs of pharmaceuticals. But we definitely recommend seeking out those if you need them. Seeking counseling, going to your primary care. A lot of people don't realize that you can just go to your primary care and talk to them if you think that this is an issue. And if they feel it's something they can't handle, then they can refer you on to someone else.
I remember about 18 months ago, I was going to my routine checkup. I have to go in every 6 months for blood tests because of diabetic medicine and heart medicine. I don't have a heart issue. It's cholesterol, all right, like a lot of old men have. And they have medications, and I have to get it all tested and whatnot. And they started asking me, you go through the routine at the very beginning, and they asked, "Are you depressed?" And I go, "Do I act like I'm depressed?" I mean, if you had thoughts of suicide in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm like, okay, where are you getting this? And apparently now it's part of the routine.
Everybody.
Yeah, and they said, "Oh, it's just we ask everybody." So and I don't know anybody that doesn't go through periods of depression, but that's not the same thing as clinical depression,
Right.
And I think that's one thing that I think y'all do a good job of is say, look, everybody has bad weeks, all right. If you're having bad months, then we'll start talking.
Yep.
All right, don't automatically assume because you're not in a good mood today or you're kind of depressed because something has happened, whatnot. Sometimes these depressions are triggered by legitimate events, death in a family or a financial setback or whatever else. That's not the same thing as clinical depression, is it?
Right. There's also chemical imbalances that's without your control.
Exactly.
What causes clinical depression?
Clinical depression?
Well, I mean, the type that would need ongoing treatment, as opposed to, okay, I'm going to have a couple of bad days because of something happened, and then I'll revert to my normal self, so to speak.
Well,
we're talking about long-term,
Yeah.
you need help kind of depression.
Some mental health issues can be genetic. Like if your family suffered, then you're more likely to suffer from those illnesses. But also situational things can cause that, traumas, of course, being one of those. And something that may be disruptive to you in your life, you may perceive that differently than someone else in that same situation. And that's okay. We're all different. Just because you're not struggling as hard as somebody else doesn't make yours less of a burden.
That's a good point, because a lot of times people are reluctant to talk about their depressions because, people will tell them, well, you think you got it bad. Think of this guy over here, or your brother over here, your sister over here. That's the wrong thing to say, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, you think you got problems, hear all these other problems of other people, and all it does is compound yours, right?
It's invalidating, and nobody needs that.
Right. Or you'll say something, oh, you'll get better in a couple of days. And maybe that's true, maybe it's not.
Yeah.
And see, and I always like these kind of conversations I have with younger people in particular, because y'all are a lot more, in touch with this kind of thing than my generation was. Or
it's easy for me to talk
Erica's
about.
generation was. I mean, I'm much older than both of you. And so in my generation, we really didn't talk about it that much, particularly men.
Yeah.
Because, and also, I'm a man of faith, but, faith doesn't prevent depression from happening.
Right.
And sometimes people say, well, you need to pray harder. Well, that just compounds the problem. And now God's mad at you. Now God's on my case.
Right. And that brings up feelings of guilt or inadequacies. And
Yeah, that doesn't serve anybody.
No. So people of faith have these issues as well. I've talked to a couple of people in the ministry.
Yeah.
And you're getting
I was going to
involved
say,
in,
that's one of my big things that I get asked to talk about. Like, hey, you're a Christian and you've had mental health struggles. Can you give hope to other Christians?
Sure. Now, you mentioned before the show that you're studying ministry, ministerial studies.
Yeah.
Well, where are you doing this at?
It's Global University. It's an online academy university. It's a school. And so I will apply for my licensing. And then after 2 years of getting my licensing, I can apply to be an ordained minister. But I like to serve in the youth. And so I don't have my credentials yet, but I'm still able to use.
Well, you could volunteer. You said you were working at LifeGate, right?
Yeah.
Right. And so, that's another thing is that, again, I go back to my generation, is that if we were talking to people about depression, it was always from a faith-based perspective, which is a fine and great. Don't get me wrong out there, vast listening audience. It's great, but sometimes it's not an issue of faith.
Yeah. No, I know that.
Yeah, and so that's some of the most profoundly Christian people I know still have to deal with this.
Yep. I've always known Jesus as my savior since I was a little itty bitty, and I still was diagnosed with bipolar and insomnia, and I struggled with anxiety, and yeah.
The thing is anxiety seems to be on the rise. And of course, you look at the world around you and there's all this stuff going on and then you're getting inundated with it in social media.
Yeah, screens.
Yeah, that's
in general.
Well, even if you are not somebody that hangs on social media all the time, it's still going to find you.
Yeah.
And, news alerts or whatever else. And
right.
And you say, well, we need to divorce ourselves entirely from social media.
There's a balance.
Well, you really can't do that anymore. I mean, because everything's so connected online, even, paying your bills, and stuff like that, so, everything is online.
Yeah.
And Josh is over there shaking his head. Yes. Job security.
I'm not saying no.
That's what I thought.
I think there's a middle ground with everything. There's always
You need to be a little
balance.
closer to the mic, baby.
There's always going to be a little.
You can move the mic.
Oh,
okay.
That's good to know.
Yeah, okay.
Sit back.
Yeah. Well, Now, Erica, y'all have done seminars that are, focused on one aspect, okay? Normally, right? I mean, you talk about it globally, but you seem to always have a theme. That's the word I'm looking for. Is it a theme of it?
Yeah, we kind of have a theme, but we also like to do an array of topics. Like I said, we wanted to be inclusive and try to include where people are in their stage of life. So maybe they're not depressed, but maybe they do have anxieties, or maybe they are lonely, need that social interaction. But different places, or as preventative too. I feel like mental health things are something that you should, I feel everybody should have a counselor established, because it's not when, or it's not going to be if you have that sort of thing. It's going to be when, because we're going to all go through, like you said, the different trials in life. we're going to lose somebody we love at some point in our life, struggle at a job, struggle with the relationship, lots of different struggles. And having that relationship in place ensures that when you do go through those struggles, that you aren't alone.
Yeah, that's another thing I read about this very weekend. In fact, there was a column in the New York Times by, believe it or not, a conservative columnist, because they actually exist on the New York Times. And he was talking about the great need for more detachment from social media and things of that nature because of, what it's doing with that fear of missing out, the routine they call it, right? You've heard that many times, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
But everybody else's life is great and yours is crap, and therefore, what am I doing wrong? And you're shaking your head over there.
Yeah, I think everyone should be in therapy, mental health, struggling or not, like she said.
There's also who pays, right? Because some insurers rather pay for therapy, and some do not.
Yeah,
and I know in town in Burleson we have several outfits now. Mm-hmm. The one that I've used in the past is Promises Community.
Yep. And they have some financial options for you.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
They have different options, and insurance will cover some types, some others not. So you have to really check with them first,
right.
really, which is kind of sad in a way, but that'll be depressing in itself. But no, Promises worked well for me, and because it's connected to First Baptist, but it's not. It's as spiritual as you want it to be, not as spiritual as they want it to be. They don't impose that upon you. It's if you want to go in there and talk strictly clinical stuff, great. But if you want to incorporate some faith aspect into it, that's fine too. Mm-hmm. So it's up to the patient, not something that said, well, it says here in Timothy, you heathen. So
yeah.
So how long have you been doing this?
Mental health talking. Well, we started Rise in 2021, and that was where it kind of all started for me. I wrote a book about some of my mental health struggles, and I just kind of felt like God was like, you need to do a little bit more about like raising awareness. And so I got together with Reach, and we planned the first mental health conference, Rise 2021.
I remember that.
So that's where it started, and then it has blossomed from there. And now we're doing these Rise events. So the event on Thursday, Bloom Where You're Planted, it's a Rise event. Mm-hmm. So we've kind of just segued, and then I've been asked to do a couple other speaking gigs here and there ever since then.
You mentioned the first one in 2021.
Yep.
We were just coming out of COVID. And I was talking about this with a friend yesterday. We were at Sunday school prior to it starting, and I don't know how we got on the topic, but I think 30 years from now, when they study this era, we're going to know much more what the impact COVID had on mental health.
Right.
And it's still ongoing.
Yeah.
Because it really impacted the youth quite a bit. Educationally, we have never recovered. And, we don't get in the politics of it all, but we never have recovered academically.
Right.
And I see that in my classes in two different ways. I see it that a lot of the kids are not really used to a more regimented educational process.
Right.
And then others are, how shall I say it, they are more prone for emotional or mental lapses, and they will pull away from the class for like 1 or 2 weeks. And you say, where you been? Well, I just couldn't make it to class, and because I'm really going through problems right now, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so there's been some academic and some emotional,
for sure,
negative impacts by that COVID.
One of the things I will say, I talked about this the first year that we did Rise, is COVID brought a lot of disagreements, right? Like, are you vaccinated? Are you not? Are you going to quarantine? Are you not? And I felt like when it came to planning Rise, I was like, the one thing we can absolutely agree on is that we are all struggling from this in some way, shape, or form, physically, mentally, spiritually, whatever. Like, we lost our community. We lost our sense of being together. So why not come together and say, hey, I agree that we can rise above this?
That's what this article I mentioned before, his name is Ross Douthat, if you're wondering who I'm talking about. Ross Douthat really writes some great columns, and he's talking about the loss of community. And because it really impacted, like Hill College, for example, because before COVID, I was getting full classes, 22 to 25.
Yeah.
2 or 3 of them a semester. Afterwards, I was struggling to have classes make with enough because either they had dropped out academically or they just got used to doing it online and that kind of thing. And so I saw that. I see that now at DBU to some degree, is that they're, I walk into a class, usually I'm there first, but if I'm walking in when class is about to start and there's like 15 people there, they're not talking with each other. They're just staring at their phones.
Yeah.
And that's not good. I think we've really lost the ability for human contact. Mm-hmm. So hopefully this will help, right?
Absolutely.
And it's free too, right? So
absolutely. It is free. Yes.
That's a thing we need to understand, is that this is not something that, you have to pay for. This is something that if it's at the East Cleveland Community Center at 5:30 Thursday night, right?
Yep. Yes.
Josh, you throw that banner up there if you would. There she is. And so if you're looking to do this, it's not like, well, I don't have the money for it. You do ask them to register so you have an idea of the number, because you do provide some sort of meal there, right?
We're providing the meal.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you ask them to register. There's the QR code, or you can go into the Johnson County Reach Across Johnson County website.
Reach Across Johnson County on Facebook. There is a link where you can click on the Google link. Easy peasy. We're not asking for you to sign up for anything other than just to let us know that you're coming. That way we can make sure to have enough supplies and food.
Yeah, and if you don't have too much, but then again, you can always donate. I don't know, that's what a lot of these groups do, but still, you want to be efficient, right, with food. And so in this bloom where you're planted has kind of a gardening theme to it. So what will they be doing at this thing?
We're going to decorate pots, and then we're going to plant our own flowers. This is something you will get to take home with you. And beside that, Sara is going to do a lovely conversation and talk about growth and resiliency.
So, I was talking before the show, and we talked about this last week about gardening. I got back into gardening, and it has a lot of metaphors like mental health and emotional health, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because you need to tend to it every day. You don't have to tend to it a lot. I mean, once you get it planted, and you just keep the weeds out, so to speak. And I guess that's a metaphor right there too. Yeah.
Mental health maintenance.
Yeah. And so, I go in my garden every day and spend about 10 or 15 minutes, and sometimes I don't really need to do much. I just kind of just be there, amongst the growing things. And as far as like, is it, are you growing vegetables for the economic side of it? You don't make a lot of money gardening, okay? I mean, unless you have a huge one. I mean, the plants and all the stuff that goes into gardening, it takes some time and attention and forethought and all that business. But you do it because you like to grow things.
Yeah.
And whatever I don't use, I give away and that kind of thing. And maybe so that's another metaphor, isn't it?
The community aspect, for sure. I know my parents started a garden, and I love when they have enough stuff to share with me.
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, sure.
Yeah.
Now, your dad still runs the Castor Oil, right?
Castor Oil Premium Live Express on John Jones.
Why did you say that again? I didn't hear
John
that.
Jones?
Yeah, that's where I go. And I guess we can give him a shout out because I bet he's supportive of what you do, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
But not only that, but it is a good oil change place because I go in there and they take care of me. They know me, and they call me by my name and all this other stuff, and it's in and out, easy peasy,
Love
lemon
it.
squeezy, yeah. So anyway, it's Brett, if I recall.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Brett. But anyway, now you go there, and you're going to eat first, I assume.
Yeah,
Okay.
they can come in. So if you don't get there right at 5:30, it's okay because we're going to start off kind of slow, just kind of mingling. We would love for you to come and make friends with others. And then we will have Sara speak around 6.
Okay, what's the topic going to be?
My title is Keep Going and Keep Growing.
Keep growing.
All
Okay.
about resilience, sharing a little bit about my story and giving some practical tips.
Well, tell us about your story then, in a nutshell, I guess.
Okay, just diagnosed bipolar and insomnia as a preteen, and
You were like 12 or something.
I
like
was
that?
11 years old when I got my diagnosis, and
how would they
struggled.
know that they need it? Because I know a lot of 11 years old, and they're full of
puberty.
Just all sorts of things going on that may not be clinical at all. It's just kids, right?
Right. It had been an ongoing struggle for a while. I was self-harming. I was cutting myself.
So that's how it was manifesting itself.
Yeah.
Okay. Because, if I was talking to an 11-year-old kid, I think he's just a goofy kid.
Right.
And I wouldn't know that maybe this kid needs help or he just needs a couple across the head.
I will say one thing with bipolar, a lot of people don't realize it's high highs and low lows.
Mm-hmm.
So I would almost literally bounce off the walls and then go to this very, very dark place very fast.
Did your teachers recognize this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, I had been writing stuff in my journal and my parents had found that and were like, oh, well, this is a red flag. Let's get her some help.
We are a lot better trained as teachers to notice this. When I first started to teach in 1988, I mean, it was very, very surface at best.
Yeah.
You took a class in college for your certification on adolescent psychology and things like that, but you didn't really clue into how common. We always thought that would be the exception, and a very, very small exception.
Yeah.
And I had kids, particularly when I taught ninth grade. That seemed to be
Ninth grade, you said?
Ninth grade, yeah.
Okay.
Ninth grade, I taught that for 1 year. Oh, thank God, just for 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
And but that's when a lot of this stuff started showing up.
Mm-hmm.
I had taught 7th grade the year before, and I thought they were just goofy kids. And then I moved up to the 9th grade, and those goofy kids, okay, there's a reason why they're goofy.
Yeah.
All right. In some cases, a lot of times they're just still knuckleheads. But still, the point is that we had very little training. But in the last decade or so, in particular, 15 years, there was a lot more of an emphasis on recognizing what could be emotional and mental issues.
Yeah.
As opposed to just being ornery or misbehaving or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And cutting was one of the things that we were supposed to look for.
Yeah. I mean, causing self-harm, I'll say for myself, I just thought it was a very quick and easy way to express my big emotions. But the fact is, it was a terrible habit that stuck with me through college.
Where'd you go?
Tarleton for a semester and a half. The combination of all the medication I was on, along with all the drinking that I was finding myself doing.
The self-medication.
The combination of the two kind of took me to the opposite place where I ended up trying to take my life. So
My goodness.
that's what I call rock bottom.
Yeah, I would say. Yes.
Doesn't really get much worse than that. But where do you go from there?
Well,
you rise.
you have to. That's hence the name of your little organization. But, and then when I was dealing with high schoolers, juniors and seniors, I really, I look back and say, boy, that's a tough time for anybody.
Yeah.
Because particularly the junior years seem to be the hardest.
So much pressure.
Well, pressure, particularly when you're a junior, you turn 16, maybe, and go becoming 17, and you start to get adult responsibilities, like, maybe holding a job and they're trying to do academically well enough to get into a college if that's your choice or some sort of post-high school training and whatnot. And then, of course, you got all the issues that go on with teenagers in high school, social issues and cliques and whatever else.
Relationships.
Were you bullied in school?
It was. That's what started everything.
Why would they pick you?
It was a group of boys. It was a group of boys that I've been hanging out with for a while, and hormones, right?
I guess so.
Everyone wants to date, and there's only one of me and a bunch of them, and so let's gang up on Sara Nicole.
And so, that's not an unknown story to me.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you get the other issues about the physical self-image issues.
Oh, yeah.
That's a real big problem because, you have these young ladies that are just wonderful, wonderful young girls, but they don't have a boyfriend and they think it's something wrong with them or something they're doing or not doing and whatever else. And I tell them, it's not about you, and a lot of them will come to realize that as they mature and get older, but that, when you're going through it when you're 16 or 17, and it seems like everybody has a boyfriend or a girlfriend except you.
It's tough.
It's brutal.
Yeah.
And so being a high school teacher made me much more aware of those kind of things than maybe I thought it would be otherwise. And so it's not a good, I don't see how anybody survives adolescence. But as far as you're going to go in there and talk about self-resilience and whatever else, what would you tell people who are in your situation or were in your situation you were in? That's the way to put it. What are you going to tell them?
Well, there was a lot of things I didn't know that I know now. So now I get to go back and I get to educate. And that's why I love working with my youth group at church, because I kind of get to minister to young Sara Nicole. And one of the things that I'm, obviously faith is huge for me, but not everybody has that or gets that. And so I go deeper than that, right? We do things that are simple and easy, like take a breath. A lot of people don't realize if you just stop in your moment, whatever you're feeling, whether it's high highs or low lows, right? You're super hyper or you're depressed or you're anxious or you're feeling all over the place. If you just stop, notice what's around you, like the sensations, like you're feeling. What are you physically feeling? Like I'm touching the table. My hands are on the table. What do you smell? I smell fresh air. And then you breathe. So I like to get really sensory with things because it grounds you and takes you out of the whatever's happening in your head, the mania.
I do a lot of reading, and what helps me quite often is not reading current event stuff, which doesn't help. I mean, I do it for the show, and I do it because that's my profession, and now, I still teach at DBU and whatnot, and so I need to be up to date and all that kind of thing. But I like to read history because it really, you can get absorbed in that for a while. And that's not everybody's thing, I understand. Some people like to do other things, particularly physical things.
Yeah.
And for me, the garden is it. But because never have been really big on a real strong workout regimen. That's just, I don't know, I find it boring.
It's not for everybody, but I think moving your body in some way, shape, or form is essential to a balanced mental health.
And a lot of physical activity of any kind, I guess. My wife does an elliptical. I couldn't remember the word last week.
Elliptical?
I was like, what is that thing? It's an elliptical she does, okay? I remember last week I was stumbling over that word. And that's her thing.
So physical activity creates a chemical in your body called dopamine. I have a shirt that says dopamine is dope. Someone made it for me because that's something I say in my talks.
Brother.
When you move your body physically, it creates that release of dopamine, which makes you feel happy. So eventually your body is like, oh, we're doing something that's good. Okay, I'll get my mind on that same path.
What other hobbies would you suggest? I mean, we've already talked about gardening as one, but there's other hobbies that and I think that's a good thing to do, to have some sort of
a hobby,
outlet.
An outlet for sure.
And my wife's hobby, if you will, it sounds to some people, I say, well, really, is that a hobby? She likes to look for discounted prices on Waterford glass. All right, and,
it's a hobby.
It's a hobby. She loves Waterford, and it's kind of like it's her thing to go try to find bargains.
And then she gets that dopamine hit from that.
Exactly.
That good find.
That's exactly right. And I had to say, well, if it keeps you happy, I'm fine. But she loves looking, or she likes looking for other bargains. She loves to get on those auction sites and look for not just Waterford, but other fancy stuff. Jewelry.
Does she do
whatever.
estate sales?
She does a bunch, yes. And she goes to one in particular. There's one local outfit that does some very nice ones, and she loves to go to estate sales and that kind of thing. That's her thing.
But it's an outlet for her that takes her mind. If she was going through something, she could do that.
we still have two kids that take the if out of if we're going through something, So
I believe it.
No, well, the thing is, you never stop raising your kids, and you'll find that out as they get older.
Yeah.
But once you'll find out when they get to their teenagers, it becomes really easy to raise children.
I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, well, okay. I'm going to quote you on that a few years from now.
I know it's going to be a struggle.
Well, every age has its challenges.
For sure.
That's just part of life.
Yeah.
And they're so different.
Are they the kids?
All the stages. Oh, and the kids.
Yeah. How many do you have?
I have two boys.
Right, that's right.
One that's 19 and one that's 13.
Oh, fun.
See, I knew one of them was just out of high school, but I didn't know the age of the second one. So he's going into, 8th grade this coming year?
Yes, the next year he'll be in 8th grade. It is a very challenging year.
Yes.
He's been a lot different than my other child and definitely the more challenging one.
8th grade, there's like 3 years, 3 different grade levels that it just seemed to put you through the ringer. And all 3 of them in middle school. 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, that is the crucible of
My worst years.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
And high school does what it can, but still, you got a class of 30 and you got one teacher, and they may or may not be equipped to deal with all of that.
Yeah.
Because you got 30 kids with all these different issues. I learned a lot teaching that 1 year 9th grade because I had huge classes. And like I said, that's when a lot of the manifestations of mental illness or emotional distress showed up. I had, at any one time, I had 6 or 7 kids that were temporarily out of school because they were in some sort of treatment option, some sort of like 30-day therapy thing.
Wow.
I don't know if it still exists, but there was a clinic over in Mansfield, and it was fairly well known that, and I'd have about 5 or 6 kids on my roster there at any one time, and it was a secluded thing. They'd take them out and they put them. It wasn't just like a daily therapy or a weekly therapy. I mean, they took them out of the whole situation and put them in intensive care kind of thing for 30 days. And then they'd bring them back. And then sometimes it was helpful and sometimes it wasn't.
Right.
Because why 30 days? Because that's what the insurance paid.
Ah.
Or 28 days, actually, to be technical, 4 weeks, 28 days. And so after 28 days, either you're going to be, you're cured according to the insurance company. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
So it was interesting.
Yeah.
I don't hear about that as much as I used to, but maybe it's because I didn't teach at younger grades as much.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll see. I don't know. I don't know these things. That's why I talk to y'all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you got any other seminars coming up in the near future?
Well, we do have plans to keep this going, multiple events. We will at least do 4 a year. We've already done one in February, and then we're looking at doing another one in August. But we're also hoping to spread out the opportunity to attend these and not just do one in a certain area. We're hoping to maybe this next month or this next time to have 2 or 3 in different locations.
Like in
Burleson.
Burleson?
Same event, yes.
Burleson area, maybe.
Yes, but one maybe out in Cleburne, or we would love to have an opportunity to do one somewhere we haven't, maybe Grandview or Alvarado, just depending on where we can find a location and people that can help us come together to provide this for the community.
I don't know of any meeting places in Grandview,
Right.
So I can't really think of. Alvarado, I believe, has like a civic center of sorts. It's small. And then in Burleson.
Or like Godly, Rio Vista. I mean, we just haven't been able to reach out to some of those places yet.
There's a place in Godly that I've been to several times for some of these nonprofit events. James Place, I believe it's called. You know what I'm talking about? It's a venue out there that I've been to for a couple of wedding receptions out there. I know Next Step has used it, so you can talk to your friends Megan over at Next Step. They can tell you all about it. It's on 174, and it's a very nice venue. And I don't know anything at all about the expense of it, but that's a good place for a Joshua meeting. In Burleson, they have that what they call a public area over at that bank off of Wilshire. But every time I have the city council here, I'm always hectoring them about we need some sort of civic center, and they know it, but they also talk about all the other financial obligations that they're facing. So it may be a little while before that happens.
Yeah, I know we've had churches that have opened up their place for free. Yeah. I mean, Pathway has been amazing to us, and
in Joshua, True Life Church has been a real blessing to us too, opening up space for us to have our meetings.
First Baptist has held some stuff. I know they just had something pretty recent for the chamber, so they do all these things.
Right. They host us for our big prom event.
Oh yeah. How did that go?
It went really good. 87% of students were able to find some sort of attire for prom.
That's good. I think the prom season just ended for BISD, but that's another social stressor, isn't it? Prom. I mean, one thing I did like about Burleson High School's prom is that you could go as a big group of friends, and there was no stigma. In my day, if you didn't have a date, you stayed home. I stayed home because I didn't want to go on a first date to the prom. That's just not a good deal. So me and my buddies went to the batting cages. But as far as, that's another social stressor. The people that attend these things, what generally is the age group?
All ages.
All ages.
The February event, oh my gosh, I was so excited.
Yeah, we have little kids all the way to older seniors, I would say.
Yeah, we had seniors, teens. I love when we have teens in the audience.
Are they aware of what's going on, these young children? Why they're there? Why they need to be there? I mean, like if they're 10 or 11 years old, did you know at 10 or 11 years old something was wrong?
No, I had no idea.
Yeah. I mean, would we know it?
Yeah, I don't know. I question that when my daughter asks, like, oh, what are you doing? Like Thursday, she doesn't know what I'm doing on Thursday, and I still haven't figured out how to navigate those conversations with her. She doesn't know some of my story.
Right.
I've tried to have open conversation with my kids. My youngest has some struggles. He has some struggles with anxiety type issues. And it was just so hard even finding a facility that would even see him. No one wants to treat kids under the age of 13.
Is for
But
financial reasons or because of medical
we were
reasons?
having to pay out. I mean, I ended up finding a place paying out of pocket. But yes, the resources, there's so many. Oh, yes, we see kids. And then I'm like, okay, well, my son is, I think he was around 11 when he started having counseling. And they're like, oh, we only 13 and up.
When you with your 11-year-old, how did you recognize it? I mean, you're experienced in this, so you probably saw it coming in a sense. You saw how he's acting, and you were able to probably more quickly come to the idea that there's something going on here, as opposed to me. You know, when my kids were growing up, I just, you know, it was a little. I've been slower on the uptake. What did you see in your son that made you think something might need to be done?
Well, I think seeing the expressions in his face during certain things, maybe not reacting in a quote normal way to something that may have seemed minor to someone else. He was having lots of thoughts about death and dying.
Yikes.
Not in himself, but like worrying about his dad, for instance, is a first responder. And so he would talk a lot about that. And I was also a first responder at one point. And he would talk about it constantly, and he would be unable to sleep. That was another thing. He would really struggle to go to sleep because he said, my mind just won't stop. So I definitely seen signs that there were issues that he was struggling with. He started struggling a little at school, withdrawing more. But luckily, he did talk to me about some of the things that he was feeling and experiencing and about the thoughts of death or dying. He was worried about other people. And I'm not even sure what brought that on, because after that, my father had died like 2 years after he kind of really started having these issues. And so if he wasn't already in counseling, I don't know how he would have taken that. It could have been a lot worse for him. And I think that we should have awareness. That's one of the big things that I like to promote, awareness about mental health issues, is because it doesn't have to be this hard. There is help. There is resources. Like I was super excited about the Starting Point website. If y'all don't know, Starting Point, jctx.org is a new website that will have multiple resources, including counseling.
Is that it?
Yes. And this is a lot of resources in our community that are going to be low cost, free. There's help out there, not just for mental health struggles, but I'm talking about like help with bill paying or financial, food resources. Because if you're struggling in that aspect of your life, well, yeah, you're not going to be mentally prepared to take on the other difficulties of life.
You know, it's interesting also is that if people come thinking this is a one-time thing, you know, about mental health, that's just not the case. It's an ongoing thing.
Absolutely.
And it's not, you know, even you could have the most effective event of all time on Thursday, but that's just step one for some people, or just another step along the way for some people. It's not something that it isn't like treating, you know, the flu where you suffer through it and then you get over it and move on or something like that. This is something that's probably going to stay with you to some degree, in some manner, all your life.
And that's one of the reasons I send people home from whenever I speak. I'm like, okay, I'm going to give you homework. You're going to go home and you're going to have a couple of steps that you have to continue.
But y'all don't recommend any specific counselor or counseling, but you do recommend they seek it out.
I actually talk about all the different types of therapy.
Well, different types, but you're not. But I'm talking about specific persons or specific organizations that do counseling. Y'all,
that's really up to the individual because it's not a one size fits all, right? Just because I'm in a size 8 shoe doesn't mean everybody wears an 8 shoe,
right.
And that's where some of this comes into play.
Well, that's a good idea because. You know, I don't want people to hear this think that y'all are either part of a for or nonprofit organization in a sense that you're trying to shuffle them into your program. You're trying to tell them to find the program that works for you.
Yeah. Right.
This is not us trying to recruit you
right.
into our, yes.
Yeah, because
this is just a free opportunity to come and meet new people and learn about resources in your community if you need those resources.
Well, the first time, no, maybe the second time, you were on my show, and I was telling somebody what you were doing and who I was having on the show. They asked, hey, who's on the show this week? And that kind of conversation. And I mentioned, I said, well, what group are they with? And I mentioned your group. And they thought for a second there that it was, a for-profit or some sort of counseling organization. And I said, no, that's not it at all. They don't do the counseling. They recommend the counseling that fits you, and you go find what you want. They don't make money, or it's not a clinic they're trying to shuffle you into and that kind of stuff. So I think the people need to be clear about that.
Yeah, it's getting people equipped with the right resources. And when I say right resources, that's not a one-size-fits-all.
Yeah.
And the prevention. So not only are we into preventing these kinds of issues, because, I mean, in a way, if you tend your garden and you take care of yourself and pour into yourself, then hopefully you won't be overly consumed by some of these things. So like Sara said, equipping yourself and knowing like, hey, I'm having these thoughts or I'm having these struggles and it's been more than 2 weeks. Maybe I really should seek out something.
Well, in my generation, my age group, the two biggest areas that cause a lot of need for this is either job situation, job change, or even when they're retired, you think, oh, it's great, it's retired, I love it. But it takes you a routine, and so there's some adjustment there. Also, usually at my age, you start, unfortunately, encountering more funerals, shall we say, and so you have to deal with that. And so I hope a lot of the people in my age group, come to these things.
Yeah,
and that's why Jerry over at Medicare Counseling is very helpful because we go through a lot at every stage of life. It's not like, oh, you're retired, it must be great. You could just go play golf all day or whatever. And that's not the real world.
Right. There's different issues that come to that age group. Also, it's I think when you retire, it's a loss of purpose.
They always say, do you need something to get up for in the morning? And this was it for me. And then also, I was still at Hill for a little while. I just left them on good terms. I always say that because, no, I retired from Hill. I didn't leave or they didn't kick me out. I just retired from Hill. I still do DBU. And this is what got me out of bed is the podcast business and all that. But, it's an ongoing thing. It really is. And then at my age also, the physical aspect that impacts upon mental health and emotional health as well, as, because, as we get older, things start breaking down and so you go. So you start dealing with a lot of things. I need to talk about a couple of other things that's going on in the community. First of all, 88.3 The Journey will be promoting this show. They'll tell people on their radio to, hey, if you're interested in this, go check it out. Check out the Facebook page. Go check out the organization. Also, they'll check out the show. They don't play the show, but they'll point people towards this show if they want to get more information. So thank you, Rich. I'm going to try to get them back on the show pretty soon.
And they've been great about including mental health on their channel now.
Yeah, because, again, back in my day, there was like a divide between faith and mental health kind of thing, And Rich and I had a nice conversation along these lines 3 months ago about what he wanted the listeners, which are almost all Christians, as you might expect, that you needed, faith is great, but you need to take care of the whole body too.
Holistic.
Yeah. And so he's really big on, informing his listeners of what Christians would be interested in just because they're citizens or people. Also, this will be on the radio show tonight at 6 on Community Radio on TuneIn and Live 365. Is where you can get it. It'll be on at 6 o'clock tonight, 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Most people that access this radio show do it on laptop. I'm finding out because I'll put the link on and they'll put it on a laptop and they'll go about their business, or they'll put it on the car as they drive around. But usually I'm finding my dad is telling me that laptops are the majority source of where they're accessing this. So they'll be able to get some more of this information tonight and tomorrow. Also, there's a lot of events going on. Saturday's a big thing, and they have a Cinco de Mayo event going on downtown. There you have it. there was another one that Jessica Pounds over at the city talked about. I'm going to look it up.
Beauty and Bliss.
That's it.
I am
yes.
so excited. I have had that on my calendar forever.
Okay, how about
taking
that?
my mom. Yeah.
Okay, and it's going to be a big deal.
Burleson Event Center.
Burleson Event Center. That's the one on Wilshire I was talking about.
Is that Wilshire?
I believe so.
Okay.
No.
I thought it was further down.
No. It used to be the south, someplace south, just south of town. Yeah, it's on the highway.
Yes, like towards Pirates Cove.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, it's on the other side of the highway. Pirates
Yeah,
Cove.
but it's towards it.
Yeah. It used to be back in the day. It was SPJST.
Okay.
Someplace
yes,
just
okay.
south of town,
I
right?
know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So just get on the service road on the highway and go south off of Hidden Creek, and you're going boom. There you are. That's a good place to have your next event. You know, could think about that too. But anyway, just Jessica Pounds asked if I'd promote that a little bit. Beauty and Bliss.
So excited.
Do you know much more about that?
That goes into like the whole wellness thing we were
You're
talking about
right.
earlier. It's kind of like, self-care is really important. That's something I preach about a lot, is taking care of yourself. And so, I mean, this is going to be more of like an aesthetics event. You know, they're going to have like hair people, and I think they have a massage therapist and little vendors that do like nail stuff and, very feminine beauty. Which
here it is. I got it on. She had sent me a message here, and Day of Pampering. It's going to be. It started at 1 p.m. at the Burleson Event Center, which again is at 1150 South Burleson Boulevard. That's to get to it's pretty easy. Just take the Hidden Creek exit and go down south on the highway. Boom, there it is. Nice big white building. They do want you to register so they know who's coming and all this other business. And it'll last about 1 to 5, and it's got all this stuff going on. So it's going to be a real nice thing to do. And that's another thing is part of the self-care is the self-image, right? Mm-hmm. And also, I'm going to have to put this on the radio show more today. There's the Center for ASD has a couple of events, an open house next week, and then we got the Honey Tour coming in May 22nd. The Memorial Day weekend, and City on a Hill. That's another one. Yeah, it's a big one. Yeah, so we got a bunch of stuff going on in this town. April and May and early June. That's go time for these nonprofits. So it's a good thing, and I'm glad to be able to promote them because it gives the show some purpose.
Yeah.
Other than just me ranting and raving, which I'll be doing tomorrow, by the way. No, I don't have a guest tomorrow. It's just me talking about current events because I think I need to do that. Every now and then I get this compulsive need to do it. So something to look forward to, huh, Josh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Looking forward to it. Yep.
Yeah, I'm going to bring you in the conversation and ask your opinion.
Oh boy.
No, I'm not. That's why it says
no, but
you're entitled to my
I'm
opinion.
Entitled to your opinion.
That's my opinion. That's what it says here on the logo here. Well, thank you all for showing up and tell us all about it. Thank you for what you do. I mean, that's even more important. What you do is extremely important, and sometimes people forget to say thank you for such things. So we appreciate what you're doing for our community.
Thanks for giving us the space to talk about it.
No problem. That's what it's here for. That's why I do what I do. What number show is this, by the way, Josh?
This is episode 703.
So, and they didn't say we get past 680, but no, I don't know, something like that. After 1,000 shows, I'm going to have to, reevaluate. I don't know. Anyway, we'll see you tomorrow at 11, where I go off on some weird tangent, and then let's see who I have next week. I have to look at the calendar because I don't want to just rattle it out there because I've done that before, and oops, I was wrong. Next week, I have the Chamber of Commerce at this time. We're going to talk all about the events coming up. And then on Tuesday, I have a tentative date, so I don't know yet. So I'm going to just kind of wait on that one to see if they can make their schedule work. So I'll just hold that one off. Anyway, thank you, ladies. And we will wish you the best on Thursday night.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. We'll see you later.